A wonderful good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight to the Pajunk webinar featuring again a very important topic on regional anesthesia. Tonight with me, you see already on the screen here, Dr. Pierre Pandin. Dr. Pandin is the clinical director for anesthesia, neurosurgery, orthopedics, and traumatology at the Department of Anesthesia and Critical Care in the hospital Erasmus in Brussels. Now we hear you, Dr. Pandin, we see you, everything is good. Okay. So tonight he will share his experiences on NRFit. Dr. Pandin uses in his hospital together with his team NRFit products for more than a year, and he's very eager to show you his experiences so far. Some technical information before we start. The questions you probably might have during the course of this presentation of Dr. Pandin, we will answer at the end. So please stay calm and relaxed. So we will answer all your questions. So I will continue with my technical background information before we kick off with the actual presentation. So the questions, please put them into the Q&A section. There is some on your Zoom control menu. You will see some button which will say Q&A, and there you can write all your questions at any time you want, and we will answer these questions at the end of the presentation. We have planned the presentation to take about 30 to 45 minutes and another 15 minutes to answer your questions. We will record this presentation as well, and we will publish it on YouTube within the next 2 weeks. So if there's anything you want to have a look at it again or check some of the studies, papers, and numbers Dr. Pandin will present to you, you will have the chance later to see the whole and entire video again on YouTube. That's from my end. Dr. Pandin, all set? You're ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
So you need, if you share your...
Yes, I share. So let me know. Let me know.
Yeah.
Is okay?
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Okay, so good. I will start now. Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay, I start. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is my pleasure to talk about you this evening about safety and the development of safety in regional anesthesia. I'm also Dr. Pandin from Erasmus Hospital in Brussels. I am associate professor in anesthesiology. And so this evening, I would like to share with you our experience of a complete shift from Luer to NRFit systems in our daily practice from 21 months. Yes, 21 months is quite 2 years. So for starting my presentation, this is my disclosure about my partnership with industry. And so the story starts quite 15 years ago by the publication by ISO of a recommendation about the connections in medicine, because in anesthesiology and in medicine in general, there is a lot of connection between tubes. And so to prevent the misconnections in the different family of tubes, because we will see that this standard is subdivided in different substandards. Two are more interesting for us this evening. Of course, the number one, because it is a general aspect, and the number 6 about the connection regarding the nervous system. So this is a review of the family of the ISO 80369 standard, developed a long time ago, quite 15 years ago. And actually, only 3 of these 6 standards are really applied, largely applied as the NRFit, considering the enteral system and enteral fitting. EuroFit, a little bit less about the urinary collections and urinary connection. And this one of today, this evening, the NRFit corresponding first to the neuraxial and epidural connection, but more recently extended to the peripheral nerve blocks and infiltrative techniques. The 3 others are for the moment not developed and not in progression. So NRFit, what is it? NRFit, it is an adapted and specific connection standard, a new standard, and slip and lock. You have a choice. And second, there is a colorimetric standard, and so you have well understand that this colorimetric standard is yellow. So in terms of NRFit, the main concern and the main goal of the NRFit standard is the prevention and the control of misconnection and misinjection. This is considered an active safety process. So in terms of safety, it is active process. And it would be, and I said it would be, and you will see that is not completely the cases for now, for a moment. It is an official worldwide recommendation because it is supported by ISO. So this is the slip and the lock connections. And you see that between, on the bottom, an NRFit and a lure connection, there is a difference. The main difference and the main prevention is a difference of diameters, making it impossible to connect a lure with a non-lure or an NRFit system, and that it is a technical base of the standard, which is the NRFit standard. Briefly, in 6 points, this is a new name with a new denomination, new possibility to identify the products with specific barcode and specific QR code. As I showed you just before, this is a specific connector, and this is the technical base of the principle of the NRFit. This standard targets to limit and to restrain the compatibility with the other possibility of connection. The main target is to avoid, of course, the misconnection and the misinjection of product, based also on a coloring and a color standard, yellow, and based also on a recommendation, a strictly independent provision and a strictly independent storage of these articles. These articles in your daily practice must be isolated of the other articles. So in the title I used 2 years ago in my first presentation, the most important word is, of course, ready. And I think that we are going to stop 5 minutes to ask you some questions that we have prepared about a survey regarding your knowledge and your experience of NRFit and a risk of misconnection. So I think that yes. So the first question you have to answer, it is a single choice, single answer. Have you experienced a misconnection, you personally, indirectly, in your team, in your hospital, and or have you never experienced a misconnection? Second question, maybe? There is 5 questions, 5 very simple questions, just to help us to know what you are doing and what you are thinking about NRFit.
Dr. Pandin, you will have to present shortly the results, just the percentage,
yes.
Maybe the percentage, and then we can go on to the next question.
Okay, and where I can present, so I don't see. I have not access to the yes.
You should, yeah, okay, good.
This is okay. So this is the response. No personal experience. 75% of indirect experience, and it is the case the most often, the most frequently observed, and 25 by chance. 25 people have never experienced misconnections. Good luck for you. Okay. Second question.
Yeah.
In your opinion, please rate the incidence for a potential miscognition. This incidence is a possible incidence, so it is a risk, it's not a real number. It has been evaluated by different teams, and it seems to have a consensus. 1 or 100,000, 1 or 10,000, 2 on 10,000, and 1 to 1,000. And the good response, the good estimation was not 1 on 10,000, but 2 on 10,000. So it's very close, but you see that it's not completely out of interest. There is a real risk. Are you planning to initiate the switch from Lure to NRFit in your own practice, in your hospital in the next future? In the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the next 3 years, no project of switch and remain in Lure standard. I am curious. Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. So a majority of people have decided to switch, and I think that I have to encourage you, because it is a really, you will see our numbers and the monitoring, you will see that it's a real improvement. So following question. I will pause question. As far as my Lure to NRFit switch is concerned, I'm motivated by epidural blocks only. For all the central blocks, for all regional techniques, central, peripheral, and wound infiltration, for adult patient only, or for all my patients, adults and pediatrics patient. This is there is a possibility of multiple answers.
I think we have to encourage our participants, Dr.
Yeah.
Pandin, because I see that there's only a very few always answering.
Yeah. Only 4, and so please, always 4. So by epidural blocks, okay. This is the basic of the recommendation for all area techniques, and I think this is a logical, because there is a core recommendation in the standard is to not have a cohabitation between NRFit for central and Lure for peripheral. So I think that in the next future, the switch will be and must be a complete switch for adult patient and for adult and pediatric. Okay, this seems to be logic. And last question, but not the least, can the Lure to NRFit switch lead to additional cost? No additional, less than 10%, 10 to 15%, and 40 to 40%, 50 to 40% more. I'm curious of your feeling, and please try to answer, because this is very interesting for us. So the winner is.
Here you go.
Yeah. The good response was 10 to 15%, approximately. depending of local conditions, negotiations, and that can be your own performance about the negotiation. But meaningly, it's 10 to 15% of over cost when you switch from Lure to NRFit. Okay, so I think it's finished, and so I said that the most important word in this sentence, in this title, was of course to be ready. And this is all the problem of the problem of the NRFit. It is a preparation. But please don't be afraid. So we are going to follow. So why to change and why to be ready? The answer is very simple. First, you must be motivated just for the safety, and if you put the safety first to your patient. And why? And why? Because this paper of 2021, relatively recent, which is a main paper about this sort of report, is showing that we have important risk of possibility of misconnection and of course misinjection, essentially for the epidural, the central blocks. And from IV to epidural, IV to intrathecal, and epidural medication to IV route. Okay, so the most important is for the central blocks. Peripheral nerve blocks are less concerned, but we are more and more less. Of course, these results are a little bit biased because they are corresponding to declaration and voluntary declaration. And we don't know the difference between this case and the reality of the miscognition. This is one of the main problems about this subject. This is in fact, two additional paper, which are commentary and later to the editor. And the problem was each time this is a classic propofol into lumbar joint, propofol into epidural, and the problem of the patient was a definitive paraplegia. So how to work against this problem and how to try to develop a prevention? In Europe, for instance, the most developed country is UK. And owing the implication of the national health system, they have published recommendation and alerts and alerts and alerts. And so a significant part of the UK hospital are actually making their switch. But the real situation in the world is that first, England starts the process in 2016 by recommendation of the NHS, but the most evaluated country in the world is Japan, and Japan has considered the problem inversely than the other classical approach. The classical approach is professional societies talking to NHS or ministry, health ministry. In Japan, it has been completely the contrary. Ministry has decided to impose the NRFit. And then they have published a text, a law, a real law, in 2018, saying that in 2020, the people has had to make the switch, and for the end of 2020, the switch must be done. And then in Japan, 18 hospitals, 100,000 outpatient clinics, essentially for plastic surgery and aesthetic surgery, has been turned and has been switched. This is only one country in the world. This is Japan. In 22 hours country, New Zealand and Australia, are starting in 2018 the same process than UK, and we try to apply. And so in 2024, 2025, it would be possible to observe switch in Australian and New Zealand hospital. this is the situation. In Europe, very rare hospitals have done. In America, very rare hospitals have done. So this is the Japan description. Yeah, we are going to give you the slides by after. And a last point about a French experience recently published in 2023. This is not a recommendation, but in France, in the French Society of Anesthesia and Resuscitation, they have decided to constitute a group, a task force, and this task force first has tried to describe the actual situation. France is similar to the other country in Europe. Only some few centers have tried or are thinking to switch to NRFit. But what it is interesting in this paper, which is unfortunately in French, is the 7-point conclusion telling that first, NRFit, it has real improvement, excuse me. Second, this is concerning mainly the central blocks, but there is a peripheral extension. The industrial suppliers have developed appropriate equipments according to the ISO standard. UK, of course, in Europe is ahead of the game. The switch is a complex process and need time and people. It is time and money consuming. And the last conclusion is the NRFit, because it is acquiring a real legal dimension, it is would be rapidly unavoidable in risk management and error prevention. So now I will describe what happened in my hospital from 2013, because the adventure started in 2013. This is a paper of a tertiary hospital in Japan, and they are describing very shortly their approach and how they worked. We have not used this approach as a model because it was published later than we have started the process, but I think that for which one would like to have an inspiration and some explanation, they are especially the GDSEA checklist, which is very interesting because it is a real checklist of what we have to do, what we have to be done rapidly in the order to process. So in our hospital, Erasmus Hospital in the west of Brussels, we were the first in Belgium among the university hospital, among 20 to 25 precursor centers in Europe. We are rare, and the first about a total complete shift. So in our experience, we have shift from LUR to NRFit to every kind of procedure, including the blood control, and including adults and pediatric patients in one time. So for that, you have to follow, and we have followed a 6-step timeline. First are the contacts and the preliminary discussion, which are informal. And at that time, you have to constitute your task force. Second, the staff planning, what I call the staff planning. And in the staff planning, you have to simulate each procedure you want to switch. For instance, we have simulate 36 procedures, including the blood patch. And one point is very important at that stage, the identification and the location of all the unlisted local micro stocks. This is the main reason of failure during the switch. Third, to take the decision, to make the selection of your provider to perform your switch. In our experience, you have used and you have switched with our historical provider. you have signed a contract. Fourth, the implementation of the deployment. And just before the phase of information, support, and guidance of all the people, I will explain you. And after, the most important, I think, is the monitoring of what happened during the beginning of the phase of 2 to 3 years of the NRFit standard use. This is the detailed timeline of what happened about the ISO standard. The story starts 13 to 15 years ago with the first publication on the ISO website. In 10 years ago, the first official brainstorming in ASRA and ESRA. 2016, there was an official publication and an official presentation of the standard individually with a large explanation of what is NRFit, etc., etc. 1 year after, the NRFit has a tendency to become mandatory and legal, essentially in UK and California. In 2019, progressive and variable diffusion in Europe and North America, but I have to recognize that this diffusion is very, very slow, very progressive and very slow. In mirror, this is our experience. We have started to work about this project 10 years ago. Informal discussion, first step of the timeline, the precedent 6-step timeline, 2016. Market review, 2017. Market review and final selection of the provider, 2019. Administrative agreement, final plant in 2020, and final deployment in 2022 in February, the go live. So you see that this is taking time to define and to evaluate and to move with your project. In terms of equipment and in terms of equipment planning, there is 6 things that you have to do. First, the definition of equipment specification and field of application. For instance, regional anesthesia, algology, pediatric anesthesia, central blocks, obstetric, etc., etc. So you have to list every kind of application you want to cover with your switch. You have to review the competing equipments and make your selection among your potential manufacturer. You have to, first, when you have this idea, to build your pragmatic stock building plan. I will explain you that. And you have each time on the right the duration, in our case, of each step, each stage. After there is an introduction to the user of the new material, you have to explain, you have to present, etc., etc. That has taken 2 months to cover all the the potential user, because we are a university hospital. We have taken 2 months, 1 month and a half, to define the exact and the adequate date for the go live. And after that, the monitoring is important to know what the efficacy of what we have done. This is an example of our volume of use of the NRFit systems. We are using 2,000 pieces of central blocks and epidural, 3,500 pieces a year, etc., etc. And we have included algology, pediatric regional anesthesia. This is what we had to have, and this is our consumption, or possible consumption, based on our classical lure consumption. By chance, those numbers has the tendency to slightly increase with the increase of our practice and our activity. So in this process, and in my experience, I think that a single supplier to streamline it, to cover the all equipment plans, is easier, because there is a lot of discussion based on the information from all the simulation, and you have to be sure that you have all the accessories, and you will see that the devil is in the accessories. And because of that, I think that a single supplier, I think, at least for the beginning of the switch, after you can change. But I think that at the moment of the switch, one supplier, a single supplier, is really preferable. For that, we have chosen Pajunk because they were able to furnish us, to give us adult product, pediatric product, central blocks, peripheral blocks, infiltration blocks with catheter and needles, and single shot and continuous. And for that, and because we have a complete covering of all our activities, we have chosen and we have made the selection of Pajunk, but that is our idea, our practice, our experience. In terms of support and information, that it is a key point, a very important key point. Information, preparation, planification, and information. About the information, first, we have had a discussion with the hospital management to explain what we want to do, what was the risk, and what was the advantage to do that. This was in April 2021. After, we have informed the intensive care unit and the anesthesia and critical care department in major information seminary. This is essentially theory, explanation of the standard, how to apply to the standard, how to develop it, and how to use. Two information and training session, the practice aspect with the doctors to give the pieces in their hand and to see that the transformation is only the hub. The rest of the systems are completely similar. Fourth, the nurse information, because the nurse has to manage the stocks and give the and display and this excuse me, and to give you the different, prepare for you the different pieces, etc. So it was important to have and to inform the nurse and the nurse department, which was an official information passing by the direction of the nurse department of our hospital. And after, you have to have a referent, or one or two or three referent, one referent by theater, to have to provide a daily information, a daily support, or even a daily training on a model, etc., etc. Right. In our hospital, we have had one referent, myself, 4 nurses, and administrative people. This is example of support, on-site support we are used. First, we have used those panels, those charts prepared by Pajunk, which are really well done and very explicative. We have used a web support. This is an example of a website explaining the NRFit, the disposition, etc., etc. The transition now, maybe one of the most important, the switch. How to do the switch. There is a technique, a very simple technique, but if you don't know this technique, you will have big problems. You have to apply a one-time, it is written here, one-time versus instantaneous shift. You cannot consider to have a temporary cohabitation of lower and NRFit standard. That is one of the main reasons of failure of the switch. To do that, you have to constitute your central primary stock. You have to buy your pieces, you have to constitute your stock. When your stock is full, corresponding, for instance, for our first order to 36,935 pieces, we can go further in the plane. Then, when that is done, when all has been bought and all is in your hospital, you have to put all these pieces from the central stock to the secondary stock in the operating theater. In the proportion you decide. For instance, in our hospital, we have decided to use 60% in the central stock and 35% in the peripheral secondary block in the operating theaters. We have 4 theaters. When that is done, and is done on the Friday, and you have to proceed to your switch on the weekend, it is simple. You have to move from the central to the secondary stock on a Friday. When all the pieces are in the secondary stock, on the Monday at 6 in the morning, 2 hours before, all the lure pieces in black here are completely redrawn, fully replaced by the NRFit. And the Monday, which is the D-Day or the go live, at 8 in the morning, let's go start it with the new material. Okay? That is the main explanation and the rapid explanation of what is a one-time versus instantaneous shift. And in our case, it has been worked, and you will see in the monitoring the numbers and the different incidents. There was very, very rare problems this particular day. So about the transition, of course, you have to label in yellow and isolate the NRFit of all the other pieces. So you must have specific storage, specific trolley, specific place. And so for that, you have to labeling in yellow, and you have to labeling as much as possible in yellow everything's around the pieces. For instance, the trolleys. This is the example of the implementation of our old trolley. We have transformed our old trolley from a lure trolley to an NRFit trolley. This is the picture of what was proposed by our labeling and technical department of our hospital. And this is the definitive results. This is one or 5 carts, 5 trolley. And it is important to consider that you must have a specific labeled storage and availability in terms of trolley. You must have a specific level storage in the operating theater in the secondary stocks. It must be a specific column with the yellow pieces, well individualized with labels, etc. explanation. Never an NRFit system in the usual anesthesia trolley. This is a contraindication. There is actually a legal problem in Belgium, which is discussed about a case. Never NRFit lure cohabitation. This is a basic principle, and this basic principle has been applied and must be applied during the shift, the one-time shift. And never NRFit for central and lure for peripheral cohabitation. That it's possible, but it's not recommended in terms of daily practice. And as said Paulo Coelho in his book, the devil in the detail. I will give you 2 examples mainly. This is an example of pieces which is accessory, because not. It is when you want to perfuse regional anesthesia agent during anesthesia, during perioperative period, on a catheter, epidural, peripheral nerve. If you don't have these pieces here, you cannot work. And this is one advantage arrived in Munich, in Germany. They had just forgotten these pieces, and it was not possible to infuse. Same thing for this pump, this syringe, which is accepted by your classical pumps, but the connector is a connector specific to the NRFit standard. So this is an example of the problems you would have in your daily practice if you want to perfuse, and you could forgotten to order this sort of systems. Same for the, excuse me, the elastomeric pump. The elastomeric pump is wonderful, but the first generation of the elastomeric pump was delivered without this accessory. And so for connecting the syringe, filling syringe of the elastomeric pump, which is this one, on that, without this sort of connection, it is a problem. So this sort of detail would be your problems. And I think that it will in the next future represent the majority of the problem, because the big pieces you are thinking to, no problem. And so the devil is in the accessories. The devil is not only in the details, but in the accessories. And I think that, for instance, I give you the example of our case. You have passed from 37 items in our list to 64 items, because you have to add all the syringes, the special pumping needles, the special connector in the individual pack, the special fastening system, the special filter in case of, etc., etc., etc. And that must be one of the main points of your work during the second step, the preparation of your plan. Now I would like to talk and to give you two or three information about the pump, because this is a problem, a concern I have encountered with different colleagues in Belgium and or in France. The people said, okay, you switch from the peripheral systems and the pump for the post-operative. If we are not using elastomeric pump, you could have problem with our electronic pump. And if for the single-use peripheral device, you have to perform and to practice a one-time versus instantaneous shift, for the electronic pumps, essentially due to budget concern, you cannot change immediately or your pumps. And so you have to follow a plan, a progressive shift, 1 to 3 years. And you can consider a supplementation or a mixed period, merging electronic pumps, and I will give you 4 possible solutions, and elastomeric pumps. About the electronic pump, we know that we have non-specific pump, we have lure pump or non-specific electronic pumps, and in this case, you can have classical PCA or PCEA or PCPA pump using lure system. We have 2 options. The simpler option, the first option, is to use this pump with a special adapter, a special connector, which transforms the lure line, the lure tube, in an NRFit tube. This is very simple, this is cheaper, but this is not in the recommendation. So it is only for temporary, this is an only temporary solution. The second temporary solution is a little bit elaborated. In place to have an adapter, you can have on the market, and for instance, BD has developed that, and different providers have done. They are using a classical cassette connector on the pump, IV pump, but the tube is yellow. The final tube is yellow, and is yellow with a specific NRFit connector. This is a second option. The 2 other options, the 2 other additional options, are specific pumps. This is a sapphire pump, which is completely full NRFit compatible with mechanisms specially adapted to the NRFit tube with a yellow label. And so this pump is completely ready to work with the system and would be recommended for final solution. And the fourth would be, for instance, the Smith's Medical solution, which is another NRFit specific pump, plus the possibility to develop the telemedicine, which is recommended in our conditions. So Those two first solutions can be only considered as a sort of temporary indulgence, and those the two other solutions correspond to the approved final equipment fully corresponding to the NRFit solution. But, because there is always a but, there is an alternative option. And the alternative option is a transformation. And it is possible, for instance, with BD bodyguard pumps. It's not possible to all the pumps, but the BD bodyguard pumps, yes, can be transformed from a Luer non-NRFit pumps to a Luer to an NRFit pumps for a budget of 30 to 200 euro by pump. I can explain you during the question after or by email if you want. So I will finish now by, in my mind, the most important element, the monitoring. This is the effective of the people starting to work the day life with the pieces. It was a large amount of people, 46 anesthesiologists, 68 nurses, 14 midwife, assistant, logistics assistant, technical assistant, warehouse men. It was a big team ready to work with that. The support team was composed by one anesthesiologist, 4 nurses, 2 assistant logistic assistant, 2 warehouse men, 2 administrative, and 1 provider. The Pajunk provider, the Pajunk Benelux people. And the results, that day, we have performed 12 epidural, 1 spinal epidural, a combined 12 spinal, 2 spinal continuous, 20 peripheral blocks. I did not include the 12 infiltrative blocks, I have forgotten. 16 cases in algology, and in case of total at least 65, no pediatric procedure that day. No failure was recorded. The request and the advice, we have received 9 calls. 4 questions, 4 times we have been questioned on site to have an explanation or a rapid, but it was nothing of major. And the only one element which can be considered as an incident was missing pumping needles and 2 milliliter syringes in algology. You can imagine that in 5 minutes it was treated, and the needles and the syringes arrived in the algology department. So now on our practice, or regarding our practice on the last 21 months, 4 departments, 4 theaters, more than 16,000 procedures using NRFit systems during these 2,000 months, no failure, no miscognition, and no misinjection. And what is interesting is that during the 2 years before the delay, the D-Day, the go live, so the comparable period, it was declared. So I think it is a little bit more. It would be a little bit more, but it was declared in our hospital 2 to 6 cases a year, corresponding to 2/3 to central problem and 1/3 regarding peripheral problem. And from the introduction of the standard, we have no recorded any sort of failure, miscognition, and misinjection. To be honest, always in our 4 departments theaters, we can have midterm problems and incidents. One element, we have forgotten to buy the famous syringe connector, tube and connector for using on classical electronic pump during perioperative period. The first example I showed you about Deville in the accessory, Deville in the detail. We have a problem. It was rapidly treated, and now it's completely treated and regularly. Of course, this is not our problem. It is more specifically a problem of the provider, but we have had possibility to have specific stockouts, non-specific stockouts of various parts. For example, accessories, connectors, pumping needles, But that is not our problem. It is a problem of Pajunk. But I have to say that Pajunk find a solution in the days we have a rupture of stroke. So this is not very major, and it must be only considered as incident. And we have never recorded major problems overall during these 21 months. So the take-home message, and I will finish with that. First, you have to consider that, of course, it is only a recommendation, but it will be transformed by the states, the national systems, health systems, and probably the CEE in an unavoidable recommendation to be implanted. The problem is a question of time. To do your switch, to consider your switch, you have to anticipate, you have to define a transition plan, and I think that you must use a GEDSE checklist, which is very, very well done and very useful. And you have to communicate. You have to explain what you want to do and how you want to do. That is the secret of the success. The switch lure to NRFit. Remember, you have to follow this plan, this checklist, in 6 steps, from the beginning to the monitoring. I think that this is another secret of the success. That is taking time. It can take 3 to 3 years, and for the preparation of the plane, between the preparation of the plane to the deployment to the go live, you have approximately 1 year. So it is what I said. And so remember that it is time consuming, people consuming, and money consuming. There is a light over cost. Switch lure to NRFit. I recommend, in my experience, and after discussion with different colleagues in Europe, I think that one single provider at the beginning is easier. It's making the thing very simple. Same, never forget to never lure NRFit cohabitation. So you have to perform your switch in one time, and remember the shame, the charge I showed you. The organization between the central block, the central stock, the secondary stock in the theater, and the local deployment in the cart with the 3-step on the weekend. Never use and never applied an NRFit for central lure for peripheral cohabitation. That would be a source of problem. And remember, you need a specific storage, a specific stock, and a specific availability. Your NRFit pieces must be isolated in your operating room. I think that I have finished. Remember what Goethe said us, that yellow is a pleasant, soft, and cheerful color associated with sun, clarity, joy, cheerfulness, and festivity. And I would just add NRFit. This is our dream team, the task force, the 10 people which are work 1 year. And to give you an example, we had a specific meeting every 2 weeks to make the point of the evolution of the project. This is a 10 people which has been very, very helpful in the project. Never forget your future is created by yourself and what you are doing today. And this is my email address if you have questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Pandin, for this presentation and your inside view into all your experiences with your NRFit conversions. We realized that there seems to be still some open remaining questions and some interesting, takes on the whole topic as well from some of our participants. So if you don't mind, I would like to go through some of those questions and you try to answer these. I try to compile them into
make your selection. It will be better.
What makes sense. So maybe this one again, because I'm not sure if I've done it correctly. I'm slightly worried, actually. Has it been ensured that both old and new connection systems are used during the changeover phase?
Repeat, I have not understood.
Has it been ensured? Yeah. Did you make sure that both old and new connection systems are used during the changeover phase?
Yes, because if you apply the plan I have explained, the 1 day shift, you avoid any cohabitation of old system and new system, and this is a recommendation. I remember of the center in Coventry. They have recorded and they have experienced 2 failures in their switch because they have not sought and not applied a withdrawal of the old piece and the introduction of only the new piece. You have not to given, you cannot given the choice to the practitioner. Yes, you can take lure or you can take NRFit. To succeed in your switch, you have to withdraw the lure must disappear at one time and immediately replaced by the NRFit.
Same topic. I think that's a very important topic again. What do you think about switching only one department, for example, obstetrics?
That's the question. In our hospital, maybe you are being a little bit ambitious, and so you have decided to change every system. That has been facilitated because our supply and our hospital supply is centralized. And so it was easy to control all the chains because there was only one chain. In different hospitals, the chains must be individual because geographically the obstetric can be in a corner, general surgeries in another corner, and so the supply chain are independent. And that I think that in this case it would be more judicious to consider switch department by department, a supplying chain by supplying chain. I don't know if I am clear in my explanation. But I think that the switch is conditioned by you have seen the 3 level by the supply chain. So if you want supply chain for every or for a lot of theater, this is not a problem. This is our case. For those one who have specific departments separated, I think that it would be better to consider department by department. But in this case, the department must remain isolated because at a moment you risk to have in 2 departments to have a cohabitation between lure and NRFit. So I think that it is not a problem.
In our hospital, also pain doctors use some of our products, e.g. spinal needles.
Yeah.
What should I do?
If you have decided, this is very simple. If you have decided to switch, you must switch everything. So for me, in my opinion, I think that to limit the risk of failure and problem, at a moment, if your department decided to switch, you must switch every department involved in the activity of the department. After, the problem is, depending on the chain, the supplying chain, to select 1 day for one go live, 2nd day for a 2nd go live, etc. That is another problem, another practical problem. But I think that, for instance, we have a big algology department, a large algology department. The algology department had been included.
Yeah.
And it was included the same day. So the same day, at the same moment, at 8 in the morning, the famous Monday, they received NRFit systems. But we have forgotten the pumping needle and the 2 milliliters syringes.
Yeah. And here's another question on the subject of connecting, Lure and NRFit. I think you mentioned once a hospital in Germany that used some adapters in your presentation now, and because
Yes.
here's the question: don't the adapters
in Munich they have the same problem with us?
Yeah.
They have used the Go Live, they use the peripheral blocks because it was in I don't remember the hospital. I think that you know it.
Yeah,
Fabian.
I know. Yeah.
Fabian. They have it is an abdominal surgery center department, and they are practicing a lot of epidural anesthesia for perioperative period, postoperative, for liver surgery, for pancreas surgery, etc., etc., etc. And so that days they perform 2 to 3 people perform the epidural, etc., no problem. And at a moment, and for the postoperative, the patient are followed during 1 or 2 days in a mid-care. And in the mid-care, they used electronic pumps with syringe. Mm-hmm. And by chance, it was not possible that day to connect the pumps and the catheter because they have forgotten that it was needed to have a normal syringe body to be on the non-NRFit pump and a special tube. Yeah. And so they have corrected the problem in some days, but and we have encountered exactly the same problem.
And here is another similar direction, I think, of question. Blood patch.
Blood patch, yeah.
The question, yeah, because blood patch, I mean, the
blood patch must be included
per se is a Lure application.
Yeah, blood patch must be included, and I think that is a very good idea of Pajunk had to include the blood patch in the catalog of NRFit pieces. This is rare. BD and Bibron, I think I've not done that, but I think that because you are practicing your blood patch or in an obstetric department or in a general department where you are practicing epidural blocks, etc., etc., you cannot consider to have a cohabitation of two different systems. Mm-hmm. So I think that the idea of the blood patch is to include the blood patch is a very good idea. Moreover, the set of the blood patch is very complete with the Pajunk set, and so you have all in one with the syringe for punction, the IV lane, etc., etc. So I think it was a very good idea, and in our practice, it has been really appreciated by the clinicians.
Then again, a question on the handling on NRFit products. Is the handling of NRFit products any different?
No. It is the same thing. Same.
Yeah.
And that is a good question, because when you ask a question and you are discussing with people and with colleagues, this is one point very, very, very afraid a lot of people. But the system is different. It would be different. It would be difficult. No. It is exactly the same tube needle. It is exactly the same catheter. It is exactly the same filter, but it is yellow and the connection is different. Yeah. Exactly. One thing is different. It is pumping needles, which are longer and a little bit different of your ordinary pumping needles. But that's it. But in terms of handling and practice, it is the same thing.
That's actually very interesting question. Was there internal resistance in the team or in-house against the changeover to NRFit?
No, but I think that is based on the explanation. You have seen on the side, we have organized 1, 2, 3 concerning medical doctors, operating theater actors, and nurse. We have organized 6 to 7 sessions to take time to explain, to show from where we were and where we wanted to go. And I think it is a reason why in your take-home message, I think one point is important is planification, organization, communication. You have to inform. For instance, I asked to, when you have select Pajunk for the switch, I have asked to Danka Klinkenberg, who is the Benelux provider, to give us in permanence information to let to the people when they have time to read what it is NRFit and what will be the change in the future. I think that this is one of the most important points: information, discussion. And owing to that, and because we are in Belgium and people are maybe a little bit disciplined, I think that we have no problem. But I think that we have to calm the anxiety of the colleagues by explaining that it is the same thing with different connectors and different color. You could have people don't liking the yellow. That is a problem. But now I think if you inform and you discuss, I don't think you will have problem.
Yeah. Here is another one, which I'm not sure whether that's really related to NRFit, but I'll ask it anyway. My boss is considering switching to NRFit, but now he asks us to create harmonized sets and to reduce the number of articles used. Is that something you recommend when you change to NRFit?
That is your problem. You are the provider. No,
we do a lot of customized sets.
I will explain you something.
Yeah.
This is a good example because we have done that in our experience.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the epidural blocks, we have had an old composite set with the tray, the pads, the balls, etc., etc. And we had a Pajunk epidural lure set.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have discussed with Danka during the simulation, this is very important to simulate what you need, what would be your practice, what could be better for your practice. We have had a discussion, and it was evident that first it would be cheaper in our case, and second, it would be easier to build a personalized set with the different pieces of the epidural set, plus the drapes, the pads, etc. What we would like to have. First, we have make economy. It was cheaper, and second, it's easier because, for instance, in an obstetric department, the midwife open on the table and everything is ready. It's more rapid, etc., etc. So in our case, we have developed one specific personalized set, and for all the other techniques, we are using a standard kit, a standard set with pads, one drape, etc., etc., plus the set in a plastic box. But I think that, and in my opinion, in general, for IV arterial lines, it's better to try to develop specific kits with standardized approach in a department. I think it's a good idea. This is what we are doing in our hospital.
Good. And then I have one question left. I think that's a good question to summarize again. What is the process for reviewing and updating existing medical equipment and accessories to comply with the NRFit standard?
That is a question. Now, in our experience, we have reviewed different things. First, taking in account what we would prefer at that time to have one supplier to simplify the approach. Because if you have to coordinate the approach between BD, B-Brown, Vigon, Pajunk, because the problem is the devil in the accessories. You have to multiply accessories, and that is a problem. So I think it is simpler to start at the beginning. What I want to say, yeah, so our choice. We have made your selection based on the catalog, what the different providers covered in terms of our activities. In our case, we have a very wide number of techniques. We are including continuous spinal anesthesia, continuous block, peripheral block, infiltration with different size, different lengths, etc., etc. And making this approach, making our analysis, analyzing the market and the different catalogs, Pajunk was able to provide everything, including the blood patch, first, and second, the quality. The quality was encountered. I don't want to compare the quality about European provider, because I think that we are providing a good system and good quality systems. But for us, the conjunction of the covering of all our activities and all of need, and because it was very important, a lot of techniques practiced in our hospital, adults and pediatrics, because some providers are not developing pediatric pieces. They are developing only adult pieces. So because we have this large, huge need regarding adults and pediatrics, continuous and single shot, central and peripheral, including specific technique as the blood patch, etc., etc., and the quality, and making the comparison and the compromise, we have chosen Pajunk. And because we are liking the green, not the yellow, but the green.
Like in my bed, yeah. Yeah.
No, it was a joke, but
yeah.
I think the process is that you have to consider what you want. It is exactly as when you are going to buy, you want to buy a car. You try what you want to do with your car and the quality and the price.
Very good.
Okay.
Dr. Pandin, I think this was it. We answered all the questions. So thank you very much for this very lively and the presentation and your inside view into your operation. Just wanted to let you know that you had your webinar was viewed today from what I see from the registrations in Poland, Belgium, Netherlands, France, and Germany today. So there were, looks like this topic is of high interest all over Europe now and getting momentum. Yeah. So thank you again for your time and your presentation tonight.
Thank you for your attention.
To all our participants and viewers out there, thank you for joining in and for staying and spending your Monday evening, or no, Thursday evening with us, sorry. It's usually Monday in Germany, so I was confused. So spending your Thursday evening with us. Dr. Pandin shared his details. He would be very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, you can contact me. You have my email address. You can contact me. It will be with pleasure.
Yeah, send him an email address. And if you want to know anything about our products or our services, please drop your mail with us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.